Hi Cyrus, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Okay, good. I don't have any planned topic here, but just wanted to, just a little curious about, I think you mentioned something about a new project you've been working on. So I just wanted to get a little bit more detail on what that project might be and what inspired you to do that project.
The project is somewhat educational. However, there is a certain amount of ancestral and cultural patriotism driving that project. It's called
I like patriotism actually. I think that's a good thing.
right. I'm. Some people mistake my drive as being nationalism, but actually I'm a civilizationalist. So I'm of
Civilization.
Iranian descent, Iranian
So,
ancestry.
would you rather use the word Persian or do you like the word Iranian? Because there is some kind of thing about it. I don't know what it is.
Some people mistakenly, in my opinion, conflate or use Iranian and Persian interchangeably.
Yeah.
However, this is quite a multi-layered issue because both Iranian and Persian, the terms both have multiple meanings.
They do.
So
So the Aryans, as far as I know, Aryans came from Iran, or is that Iranians are Aryans, or Aryans were Iranians? Is that a correlation there?
So etymologically, the word Iran means Aryan, or the land of the Aryans.
Aryans, yes.
And the Aryans were an Indo-Iranian peoples who were a branch of the Indo-European people originally.
I see.
And the Indo-Europeans are a ethno-linguistic group. So they are the ethnicities that spoke a particular family of languages
Yes.
that branched off into the Europeans, making up probably 90% of the speakers of European languages.
Yeah, Indo-European languages, which is, I would argue that it started from Sanskrit, but I don't know if you might agree with that. But
I think Sanskrit appears later in the story.
in the story,
Yeah. Okay. So let me explain.
okay.
Maybe I'll give like a more full explanation.
please do.
So actually, this, in 2023, new research was published.
Okay, so that research hasn't come in, through, I haven't seen that.
Okay.
So maybe that's news to me. Go ahead.
So this was published in, I think it was in the journal Science, and it was a study conducted by the Max Planck Institute of Archaeological Anthropology in partnership with the University of Auckland and a number of other institutions. And it
University of?
Auckland.
Oh, is it
New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And
I thought Oakland because I'm from
not
California.
Auckland, Auckland.
Okay.
And
There was no university in Oakland, but okay, sorry.
and it drew upon the expertise of some 80 or so linguists. And they compiled a new data set of Proto-Indo-European vocabulary to ultimately to discern the motherland of that linguistic tradition, or what is known as the Urheimat, the motherland of a particular linguistic tradition. And the previous most popular hypotheses were the older one being that the homeland of the Proto-Indo-European language family was in the Fertile Crescent, so somewhere maybe in Mesopotamia. The slightly younger hypothesis, or the other popular hypothesis was that the Proto-Indo-European languages were younger and originated in the Pontic-Caspian steppe, or the steppe lands between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. So, like southern Ukraine or the northern Caucasus. However, this data set, which is considered, at least by the people who published it, the most robust data set of its kind, located the Urheimat, the homeland of the Proto-Indo-European languages, as being to the south of the Caucasus. So that would put it in northwestern Iran, eastern Anatolia, perhaps part of Armenia, that type of area. So what may have happened is people would have gone west from there, but mainly north into the Caucasus and then out into the plains.
So did they have a name for that primal language, mother language of these languages?
They abbreviate it as PIE, Proto-Indo-European. So these people would have gone up into the steppe lands, the kind of pasture lands between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, and then spread outwards, becoming the Europeans and the Indo-Iranians. And then you have kind of the emergence of a number of societies like Yamnaya culture and so on.
Which culture?
Yamnaya, Andronovo.
What is Yamnaya?
So it's just a name given to an ethno-linguistic group or a society that lived somewhere in that story.
Okay, because it's nothing to do with Yemen then.
No. It's actually in the opposite direction.
Okay.
So the Yamnaya and peoples like this are kind of the ancestors of the Aryan people. They would have been nomadic or semi-nomadic pastoralist people. So they would have cultivated cattle or livestock of some sort, as opposed to their agricultural cousins.
This is going back, well, what time in history?
This is going back, I believe, according to this latest study that was published in July last year, around 7,500 years ago.
Okay.
So, so these people traveled north into the Pontic-Caspian steppe and split into the Europeans and the Indo-Iranians. The Indo-Iranians then went east around the Caspian Sea. This is what the most popular hypotheses state. And then began to travel south, some returning back onto the Iranian plateau, becoming the Iranians. And so this is roughly where the split occurs. Shortly after the split between the Indo-Aryans and the Iranians. So the Indo-Aryans settled down towards the Indus Valley, the Hindu Kush, this kind of area, or northern India, and the Iranians, as the name might suggest.
Indus Valley civilization is supposed to be a very old civilization.
Right. So these people may well have interacted with the Indus Valley civilization, and further south with the Dravidian peoples, or who may have been considered the indigenous or native.
Well, there was in the Indian or Pakistani history, they talk about the Arian invasion.
Yeah, I'm aware of the Aryan invasion theory. I mean, it's somewhat inflammatory to describe it that way. Well, but these were.
But is it? The point is not. I mean, the point is it accurate though? When you say they interacted, are you saying that they were invading? As in
I'll say they would have been entering into that realm, and they would have been settling there.
Hello, they weren't invited, so were they entering in a way to conquer those lands?
If they were entering a region where there were people opposing them who were already there, and they won, then you would argue that it was a conquest.
True.
So the Iranians, who were also an Aryan people who settled on the Iranian plateau, would have arguably interacted with the descendants of the people who were there when their ancestors left the Iranian plateau. So in a way, it's a type of a homecoming. The Persians, as one example of an Iranian people, are generally considered to be a merging of these Iranian pastoralists, the ones who had broken off from the Indo-Iranian society, and what are known as the Iranian agriculturalists. Now, they wouldn't have known them themselves.
What are pastoralists?
Pastoralists are people who take care of livestock.
Livestock, so as in pasture, okay.
Versus agriculturalists who were farmers. So this is almost like a Cain and Abel type of idea. Yeah?
That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So yeah, this kind of as a good point, maybe we'll segue to something more to do with your religion, because you keep telling me that Christianity and Judaism has its roots in Zoroastrianism. Is that still, or
I wouldn't say they have their roots. I would say that fundamental themes found in the Abrahamic family of religions have their home in Iranian thought, in Zoroastrian theology, and I think that's pretty conclusive at this point.
Okay. Well, then if you make such a strong statement, I would consider that to be a very inflammatory and very, as you think that maybe Aryan invasion is an inflammatory statement. I think what you just said is kind of like a very inflammatory statement, because it's just like it's your belief, which you onus is on you now to come up with something that the audience would say that this guy is not somebody that comes to the speaker corner just because he's one of the kooks that come over there. He has something that he has researched and is worth listening to.
Kooks at Speaker's Corner?
I don't know. Some people say that they let the doors open or something on the Sundays or something. The people, come here.
The doors of the funny house.
Left open or something.
So what type of evidence?
Because this statement that you make, it's like, oh well, they have their home and whatever from this. So to me, I would use the word root. I don't know if you have anything against that word, but what I hear from you is that your basis of your religion is coming from my religion, is what I'm saying.
So first of all, when you say your religion, my religion,
yes,
so
I do say your religion.
I need religion. So I need to create a clear distinction between Orthodox Zoroastrianism, meaning the type of religious practice that was preserved or exported from Sasanian Persia. So there was an institutionalized Zoroastrian orthodoxy established in Persia.
And there was a deviation because there was one of the kings mentioned in the Bible who had started worshipping the moon, I think, was one of the deities that he was worshipping. I forget the name of that person, but you had mentioned him once before. He was supposed to be worshipping the Zoroastrian gods or something, and he kind of like, wasn't he a rebel or something in your tradition as well?
I don't know who you're talking about specifically.
Nikolai, something like, I forget right now. I think we had a previous conversation where you mentioned his name. I always seem to forget his name, but he's mentioned in the Bible as well.
Are you talking about Manichaeism?
I think Mani. So. I don't know. Yeah, what was that Mani story, by the way?
Well, first of all, there are a number of lesser-known Iranian religions, which in their own time were incredibly successful. So we have Zoroastrianism, which you're aware of. We have...
are those offshoots of Zoroastrianism?
There are offshoots of Zoroastrianism. Okay. There are what you could call Zoroastrian heresies. In fact, what is considered the Zoroastrian orthodoxy, I would argue, is heretical to Zarathustra's original doctrine.
You're saying the orthodoxy is heretical, and your thought, which comes from...
So, in Zarathustra's original teachings,
yes.
See, I'm interested in understanding his teachings. Otherwise, why call it Zoroastrianism if you're not going to follow Zarathustra? However, my understanding is that later Zoroastrian orthodoxy follows very, very closely the teachings of subsequent sages, the disciples of Zarathustra and subsequent sages who developed upon Zarathustra's teachings.
So what you're following right now, does it have a name or is it a branch of Zoroastrianism? Can we give
So Zarathustra never called himself a Zoroastrian. That's the first thing.
Well, if he's Zarathustra, then that means that he's not going to call himself, I'm the follower of me.
Right. So
just like Christ didn't say I'm a Christian.
In the same respect, I use the word Zoroastrian for ease of understanding.
Yeah. Right.
So that people can understand whose teachings I'm talking about. But actually, he would have described his own beliefs or his own practice as Mazda Yasna.
Mazda
Yasna.
So Mazda is God.
Mazda is the name for God according to Zarathustra.
Okay.
Mazda literally meaning wisdom. So the full name is Ahura Mazda. Ahura meaning Lord or
Mazda.
Titan.
Titan. Don't say that because now that's a totally... because Titan is the gods of the sons of...
You're talking about Greek mythology.
No, I'm talking about Genesis 6. Sons of fallen angels where it became Titans.
Good. But actually, it's an important correlation to make.
Yeah,
you see, because when I read, and I actually mentioned this on a recent conversation, when I'm reading the story about what happened in the Garden of Eden, I look at the serpent and say what he did was righteous. Why
You do.
Why
But
withhold?
that would totally be in line with Gnosticism, wouldn't it?
Well, Gnosticism. It can be argued that Gnosticism is heavily influenced by
Well,
Zarathustra.
I would totally agree with you there, because if you're saying
That
that
they have this dualistic
they have all
worldview.
of that.
Yeah.
So of course, so in my opinion, there's only two religions in the world. There's Christianity, and then there's everything else, which comes from what, in my opinion, all the religions except for Christianity have come from Zoroastrianism. That's my opinion.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Sorry, except for
Except for Christianity, because when you go to the Garden of Eden, because now, when you mention the Garden of Eden, is that Garden of Eden mentioned in your text?
Paradise is mentioned in Zarathustra's text.
So then the story of the Garden of Eden is not mentioned in
Not
it.
really, no.
Then you cannot. Well, okay, then okay.
I'm making a moral judgment about what I read in Genesis,
Got you.
not.
All right, got you. You don't follow it though.
No.
Right, I know.
We don't have that narrative.
No, don't have that narrative.
No.
That's good. I'm glad you made that clear, because somebody might get confused when you use that terminology.
Right.
Because here's the thing. When people say that, well, Hinduism is older than Christianity, Bible came 3,000 years ago, whatever, and Hindus' books were there for 5, 10,000, whatever. You might come along and say, no, my
They don't
religion.
say that.
They do.
They're not 5 or 10,000.
How long is it?
3 to 3,500.
Okay, no. If
The
you ask
oldest-
the Hindus, no.
Their oldest scriptures are 3 to 3,500. The Sanskrit teachings,
Okay. When I ask the Hindus,
the Vedas.
the Vedas
Yeah.
are more than 3,000-4,000
No.
years. Okay, that's your opinion. You're not a Hindu. I'm talking about Hindu.
I'm talking about linguistically, but okay, that's a faith claim.
Okay, that's a faith claim, you would say. That's very interesting, because now the history of according to you, the history of India would go back only 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, when you guys came down to those civilizations,
No, because people would have been living there already.
and they would have had a faith, right?
Yeah.
What faith would they have had?
Well, so they would have had the kind of local. They would have
Hinduism.
practiced their. Well, okay. If by Hinduism you mean you're taking the word Hindu literally to mean the religions of the Indus area,
Yeah,
Then
the
yes.
Hindu word comes from Sindhu. Sindhu, it comes from Sindh.
yeah. Where do you think that comes from? Where do you think that word? Who do you think came up with that nomenclature? This was the name the Persians gave to those people and that part of the world.
Do you have anything to back that up?
Yes.
Okay, it'd be interesting to see what that might be and what the veracity of that is. However, what my point is this: the Christianity, I would say, started from the Garden of Eden, because Christianity mentions the whole narrative starts from there.
But it's a book. It's a piece of literature which describes past events.
True.
It's not written in the time of those events.
Of course not.
So how are you dating that literature? Are you dating that literature based on the events it describes?
Events.
Or on the time it was written?
No, not the time. Not the time. The time.
That itself is a faith claim.
No, I'll explain a little bit further. I think you'll understand now. When it talks about this, when things were not written down, that means there was no Judaism, no Yahweh, and all of this stuff didn't exist, right? Then that. All right. So we should. Okay. So my point was that if the story is describing something that happened in the Garden of Eden, I'm arguing that Christianity and Judaism started from Garden of Eden, because the story is describing that. Now, however, there's a time gap and I'm trying to cover that time gap, from the time of Garden of Eden till the book is written, right?
Yeah.
So now there is, in the book, it talks about the heavens declare the glory of God. It tells you the story of God. That's what it says in Psalms 19. I don't know. Are you familiar with Psalms 19?
To a
degree, or
Yeah,
should
to a
we?
degree.
Can I just pull it up so you can see
But
what it says?
what you're going to show is it going to demonstrate how we can attest to these scriptures being from the time of the events they describe?
I can make that connection very easily. Yes.
Okay, go on.
So let's just, for the sake of the audience, maybe pull this up. I'll read it quickly. It's
Yeah,
just
please.
a couple of verses. Let me see. I'll have to pull it up. And sometimes the internet is slow or something, but hopefully it's going to be okay. My eyes are not that good. Maybe you can help me read this passage. Just a few verses, please. So 5 verses, let's say.
Psalm 19. The heavens tell of the glory of God, and their expanse declares the work of his hands. So this is a corporeal God already.
I didn't ask for your comments. Can you just finish the passage and you can come up with all the comments you want?
Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out into all the earth,
All the earth,
and their words to the end of the world.
end of the world.
Do you want
What
me to keep
words
going,
are those might be?
or do you want to give your commentary now?
Now we're at the commentary. Go ahead.
Okay.
What's your commentary on this passage?
No, you had a
Okay.
reason to bring
The
it
reason
up.
to read this is it's very self-explanatory. David is talking about that there is a story written in the stars, and it has a purpose. And I'm glad that that story is there. Is basically what he's saying. So this, to me,
So he was into astrology,
well,
King David,
King David would be
if he
into-
existed.
if he existed, right? Well, there is proof now, physical proof of that. So you cannot make that claim. So he was not into astrology. He was what is called Mazzaroth. If you want, I can give you another verse in the Bible that talks about the Mazzaroth, where God is saying that I bring about the Mazzaroth in the cycle, which is the 12 constellations, by the way, if you don't know what that word stands for.
Yeah.
It's a Hebrew word for the 12 constellations, the
Yes,
cycle.
the garland of
The
stars,
garland
right?
of stars. Right now, that has been talked about in Genesis 49, where the 12 tribes are associated with the 12 constellations.
Could the 12 tribes just be an analog for the 12 constellations,
It's kind of
just like the 12 disciples?
Yes, it's all interconnected. Why do you think that number 12 is there? And why do you think there are 12 constellations? These are all things that are interconnected. So my point is this, that before the Bible was written, the story of the Bible was written in the stars. And the people were looking for the coming Messiah because of the story in the stars. And they did. And the Zoroastrian Magi did find that story.
We talked about that.
And then that story did come about, and we have Christianity through the stars. Because that story does have the element of the Star of Bethlehem in it. Which would be my conclusion to this, is that whatever your claim might be for your Zoroastrianism, if you cannot produce something to back it up like I can tell you that this star did exist, and I can show you, and I've sent you the information that what it was, and that was telling the story of that. That is the proof of Christianity, in my opinion. When it comes to stuff like, hey, what about before Judaism? Oh, where was Yahweh then? This is my answer.
But the narrative, so to speak, that was written in the stars, as you describe it, is not one that's unique to Christianity. Numerous cultures deferred to the celestial phenomena in their kind of spiritual story.
Very good point. Very good.
Uh-huh.
That's an excellent point.
But
So,
would you argue
Can I
that they
address
all
that?
read it the same way?
can I address that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I've said this before. I used to be involved in astrology since I was 12 years old. That was just something that I liked. It always attracted me. I never knew that it was actually. I always knew subconsciously that it has some connection to God, but I didn't, because nobody talked about it, and I didn't have that knowledge until like 10, 15 years ago, when I actually found out that what Mazzaroth is and what the Star of Bethlehem is. That's when I knew that Mazzaroth is what God has made, not the astrology is what we have made in Sumeria, where we have come up with the different connotations of these astrological figures. I mean, the heavenly figures. Those stories are made up. Those stories are an invention in Babylon. That's where this
So
Babylonian.
what sets your understanding aside? What makes your understanding of that celestial story true, where theirs are made up or fabricated?
Because it's evident by the birth of Jesus, when there is the Star of Bethlehem, which is one of the biggest proofs that you can find about somebody who's been, the whole world is looking for this coming Messiah. And the story, and where are they looking? They were all looking in the sky.
When you say they were all looking, who was they?
Those are the court astrologers and all those people who were into they were called the wise men. They were called the people who knew the story of the stars, because they were consulted by the people at that time, especially they were highly respected people because they could tell what was the story and what. Okay, so the others. Okay, I'm quite familiar with Hinduism. Like I know that in all their traditions, when they get married, when they buy a business, whatever they do, they consult an astrologer. The whole religion is nothing but astrology. Okay, all the occult.
Zoroastrians don't do that. Iranians generally don't do that.
Why do they have a lion holding a sword in his hand?
Oh, do you think it's
why do they have the Sphinx? Why do they have
Leo?
That's right. You just don't know that. You don't know these are all things that are interconnected. Now, they were all into this stuff. All the old stuff is connected to astrology, which you might call astrology.
We can delve into that.
Well, we can, of course. I'm just giving you all the evidence. And I'm telling you that when I say these things, because I know this stuff. This was stuff that I was into when I was 12 years old. So I know that all of these people, they believe all this stuff. All the occultists believe in this stuff. And the occult is a very real reality also that a lot of people are not aware of what that really is about. Yeah, that's good. Anyhow, so yeah, unless you can come up with something to back up your Zoroastrianism.
Well, I know you think you just did come up with something, but again, you're drawing on a poem from a. It's a poem, right? The Psalms are poetry, right?
No, Psalms is part of the scriptures, which
but they're in like a poetic.
It's written in praise of God, so that means that poetry you could be for anyone, but this is not just poetry by some author.
Yeah. Let's not get hung up on that. But you're drawing upon scripture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Written by somebody who's not a poet, who's actually
who?
David.
Yeah. Okay. This is the point I want to make right now.
Yeah.
You're drawing upon scripture, attributing it to someone without any actual means of attributing it to them. So there is no I don't think you have enough evidence to even claim that David was a real person, that he's a historical figure.
Now that they have some archaeological
what is that?
I have seen some evidence that they have found of the house of David on the what do you call pottery and stuff like that, which dated back. This is coming from very legitimate sources, not from a conspiracy.
If you can't name the source, if you can't name the source, we
you want?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, all right. And if I do, you're gonna apologize, okay? Because this is ridiculous. No, you're making a claim that
I'm just saying I don't need to apologize. I'm saying you're saying it's a legitimate source without saying what the source is. If you know what the source is, then we can use it.
The archaeologists have found out this in the
yeah, we can look at it.
Oh, we can look at that. Okay, fine.
I'm not saying. I'm saying to my knowledge it doesn't exist, but if it exists, then then we can adapt. You always have to be ready to move with the truth.
Okay, archaeological evidence for the house of David. Let's see if we can find it right now.
Because I've seen such claims, but they don't stand up to peer review. They don't stand up to academic scrutiny.
Oh, okay. Academic scrutiny, yeah. Okay. Let me see. Let's read that.
The Tel Dan stele is a fragmentary stele containing a Canaanite inscription which dates to the 9th century BCE. It is notable for possibly being the most significant and perhaps the only extra-biblical archaeological reference to the House of David. The Tel Dan stele was discovered in 1993 in Tel Dan in Gila Cook, a member of an archaeological team led by Avraham Biran. Its pieces were used to construct an ancient stone wall that survived into modern times. The stele contains several lines of Aramaic closely related to biblical Hebrew and historically a common language among Jews. The surviving inscription details that an individual killed Jehoram of Israel, the son of Ahab, and the king of the house of David. These writings corroborate passages from the Hebrew Bible, as the second book of Kings mentioned that Jehoram is the son of the Israelite king Ahab. But what's the source for this explanation?
This is all.
Yeah, but we're reading it off Wikipedia, but we need to
This
ask
is all
Wikipedia.
connected. I've looked at there's a documentary about this. If you want, I don't have the time.
Let me just press on this.
Go ahead.
Okay, we can look into that.
The point is, this is not the only evidence. Biblical archaeology is a whole subject on itself. And
Yeah.
there's way too much evidence for all this stuff that's in the Bible. And it proves the Bible correct. Now, if you're going to just say, yeah, well, they wrote this and that, this is not just somebody who wrote the poetry. This was a real person who had
A real person wrote it.
real person who had the real history of being David in the Bible.
How do you make that? How do you make that conclusion?
Anyways,
It's attributed to that person.
it is attributed to that person for the significance of that person, because that person, this book has survived over time. Who wrote this book? Who wrote the Zabur?
Who wrote what?
Zabur.
Sorry.
Psalms. Zabur is the Hebrew word for it.
I don't know who wrote it.
Okay, well, anyhow, point is that if you just come up with stuff like, where you're going to say, well, the Zoroastrian or Hura Mazda and this.
Well,
and that,
so you
these
pull up
things.
Wikipedia as your source. So we can ask Wikipedia again.
I'm just look,
Hold on.
at this,
You're saying who
you
wrote
said-
it as if it couldn't be anyone other than King David, but a source will tell you that it's no earlier than the 5th century BCE, whereas you believe David lived in the 9th century BCE.
And like I said before, the Bible was written in the 1500 BCE. Doesn't mean that the events mentioned in there cannot be older than 1500 BCE, like the Garden of Eden and all that. So
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's a difference between when they first wrote it down
yeah,
and when they've written it down, analyzing the text to date it, because you can analyze a piece of literature, look at the linguistic techniques that are used, the vocabulary that's used, and so on, to date when it was written. Because there would have been certain turns of phrase or certain words that were used in one era,
Yeah.
but no earlier than a particular era.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, in very sort of general terms, that's part of how they analyze scripture to determine when it was written. So what I'm saying is, in academia, the general feeling is that Psalms was written no earlier than the 5th century BCE, in the Second Temple period.
I see.
But you attribute it to a much older period.
Okay, so I would say in the cave in what's the cave there that they
We're talking
found?
about the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Dead Sea Scrolls, right?
In Qumran.
Qumran. So the Dead Sea Scrolls have like the Old Testament in it. They found books from the Old Testament,
Yeah.
Isaiah and all that.
Isaiah is the most complete scroll.
And the other books as well. So all I'm saying is that, are you saying that then that Judaism started in 5th century BCE? Because their book goes back before. So okay, that now
not Israelite religion. I consider Israelite religion and Judaism to be two different things.
Can you make the distinction for me? I don't understand what you mean.
So in terms of the religion associated with the place of Judea, I believe is a result of religious reform during the Second Temple period. However, ancient Israelite religion is something that long predated that and went through a kind of natural stage-by-stage evolution. The character of God changed. As in, if you read the Bible, the oldest parts of the Bible, and you kind of go through it chronologically, the language that's used to describe God, the way the people of each subsequent epoch viewed God changed. If you look at the earlier parts of the Bible, Yahweh is described in much more corporeal terms, as in having a body, having a human-like body.
Give me an example.
Like in the book of Samuel, where it describes the throne and it describes the body of God, the legs of God, and so on.
Okay. No, I'm not very familiar with it. I'm not. See, as a Christian, I don't delve too much into the Old Testament. I go to the parts that are kind of relevant, and this one is not something that I'm very aware of. However, when you say corporeal, that
Yes, in
means that
having
there's
a body. Yeah.
When Abraham met God,
Yeah.
came to him as a man, right?
Okay.
Right. So there is.
But I'm saying the later you go in the biblical narrative, the less corporeal, the less human form God tends to have.
Well, then I would argue that no, that's the opposite, because then
Until
Jesus is saying,
until you have a literal man according to
yes.
the Christians.
So how are you saying that previously he was corporeal and now he's actually a person, and you're saying that's not that? I mean,
I'm
that
saying
is still.
I'm saying if you look at how God is described through the ages and you use the Bible and it's in kind of chronological order, you
Okay.
see that how God is perceived changes with the times. So there was a time where he was considered having something of a physical man-like form, and then that becomes less and less and less the fashion,
Okay,
so to speak.
I would argue to that, because what I would say is that in the Old Testament, they worship the angel of God.
In where, sorry? When?
Angel of God.
When?
In the Old Testament. He says the angel of God came to him and they worshipped him.
Okay.
Okay, so that means that there was somebody.
Which part of the Bible are you talking about now?
This is in the Old Testament. Versions. Like I told you about the Abrahamic story, and there's other places where the angel of the Lord came to him, and the angel of the Lord has been repeatedly mentioned in the Old Testament, and then also Lord is mentioned. So now, if you could for example, this is the example I give all the time in the Psalms 110. It says, "My Lord said to my Lord," and that's David speaking about his vision. So there are two lords.
Well, I don't know what words you're referring to in Hebrew.
What do you mean in Hebrew?
Well, what words are you saying are Lord? Elohim.
Okay, let's take. I don't speak Hebrew. I don't know if you do, but
I don't. But we can look at the word for word translation
that
just
the
to
word
get
to
an
word
idea.
translation would mean what? Let's just go to your.
When it says "My Lord spoke to my Lord,"
said to my Lord. Yes.
Said to my Lord.
Let's see what it says.
Is it the same word?
Let's say what it says here. It says, the Lord said to my Lord, said to my Lord, sit at my right hand.
So the first "the Lord" is all capital letters, and then the second "my Lord" is just capital L.
Capital L.
I mean, firstly, it's important to understand. I mean, they're trying to explain something by doing it this way, because there are no capital letters in the Hebrew language. So that suggests to me there are two different words maybe being used there. So can you go to the Hebrew translation? The Hebrew.
That's just gonna take a. I don't know.
What is it? Psalm 110.
Psalm 110. Yeah. Where's the Hebrew? You think it's
there? HEB.
Okay, let's go there. Yahweh.
So it says Yahweh
to my Lord.
To my Lord.
Yeah.
So who is my Lord in the second instance?
That's Jesus.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the overall message of this psalm is.
Well,
can you tell me what? Can you encapsulate
Jesus quoted this psalm himself.
But what's David saying here?
He's saying that he's talking about Jesus in his vision, that he's seen Jesus, the Lord telling him, "Sit at my right hand."
Your understanding is that David said he saw he was talking about Jesus.
Yes, of course. He's talking about Jesus sitting at the right hand of the Father.
Okay, just out of curiosity, do you know the Jewish understanding of that psalm?
No, tell me.
No, I'm asking you. I don't know.
I've talked to Jews about it. They just they don't even have any real explanation of that, but other than to say, "Oh, one is the Lord and one is God," and which Lord is that? Because David himself is Lord.
Yeah.
Because he's king.
Yeah.
So he cannot have a Lord. So who's his Lord?
His Lord would be God.
Okay. Well, then now you're coming to the point. So if his God is Lord, if his God is the Yahweh, then why is he saying the Yahweh is saying to my Lord? Who is his Lord?
Oh, I see. Sorry, maybe you misunderstood what I said.
Number 110. 110. Okay. So all I'm trying to say to you is that this shows us the history of the Bible is not starting from the 5th century or from this or from the other. You know what you're saying?
I'm saying the bit you're quoting is from the is.
I also showed you the shards of thing that you said, archaeologically that, because it's in Wikipedia, it's false. That doesn't mean that everything in Wikipedia is false.
I did not say that.
Okay,
and I don't want you to think. No.
That.
I was saying Wikipedia. You have to check the sources that Wikipedia is using.
I didn't tell you that this is where I got. This is not my source. I just pulled it up to just show you. I saw this.
That the idea exists.
Yes. I saw a documentary about it,
Right.
Okay, that detailed everything. Okay, that was a while back. So
Right.
just when you ask me right now, just to show you that this is the real thing, because you said, oh, where there is a shard of pottery or whatever that has this
But I'm
name,
saying
I
that
just want to give you
like
this reference.
the 20th century or the 21st century is littered with cases where people have made discoveries and made claims about those discoveries, which later proved not to be as they were described.
Right.
So I'm saying why we have to consult the sources, the academic sources, is to confirm the strength of the claim that they are from the time that they are claimed to be from. Do you understand?
So I'm listening.
So when you say this is on Wiki, so if we find a source that's on Wikipedia,
Are
I'm
you
not saying the fact that it's on Wikipedia makes it
I'm not saying
unreliable.
that. All
I'm
right.
saying Wikipedia should also list the source. So let's look at the actual source
Okay.
that Wikipedia is quoting.
All right, Cyrus, the discussion we were having were not about the veracity of this shard of pottery that we have discovered. If you want to have a separate discussion, if you want me to bring you the archaeological, let's have another discussion about the archaeological evidence for Bible, and I'll bring you that, because that was not the subject. We were just talking about your new project where you want to bring to the I don't know what your that was the main thing, and my counter argument to that was that, look, whatever
what?
to your you know
I haven't actually
wanna-
made an argument yet.
Okay, well,
You were preemptively countering something because you thought I was going to say
okay.
Judaism, Christianity, and Islam come from Zoroastrianism.
Well, you've said that before.
No, but
anyways.
that lacks nuance.
All right, well, go ahead.
So I
Please
tried
give us
to
the-
qualify
give us your-
it by saying there are themes in the Abrahamic family of religions that are not native to that tradition, that appeared, for example, like the idea of the resurrection of the dead, the development of angelology and demonology, the expectation of an eschatological savior figure, amongst other themes, are not native to the ancient Israelite religion. They're not. You asked me then about Judaism. Do I think Judaism is a Persian invention, you said? And I said yes, but I qualified it by saying the association of that religion with that specific place in the world, Judea, could be argued to be a Persian invention, and that's supported by the repatriation of the Israelites from their captivity in Babylon to
By Cyrus
the Holy
the
Land.
Great.
Yes.
I see. All right. Well, that's why we are having all this discussion, is because Cyrus the Great is mentioned in the Bible, and that intrigued me, because he's called the Messiah, but he was saving the Jews
And
from
shepherd. And shepherd.
and shepherd.
Yeah.
Okay, I missed that one.
You see, because you kind of tried to suggest the use of the word Messiah for Cyrus is kind of you kind of tried to throw it away, because Messiah appears in lots of places and it's someone who was just chosen for a job.
Oh.
But one of the jobs he was chosen for was to be the shepherd.
Give me the reference for the shepherd, please.
Isaiah 44, I think it's
Let's go
verse
there,
25.
because I'm not familiar with it, so that will be something I'll need to look at. Okay, go
This is
ahead.
what the Lord says, your Redeemer, who formed you in the womb. I am the Lord, the maker of all things, who stretches out the heavens, who spreads out the earth by myself, who foils the signs of false prophets and makes fools of diviners, who overthrows the learning of the wise and turns it into nonsense, who carries out the words of his servants and fulfills the predictions of his messengers, who says of Jerusalem, it shall be inhabited, of the towns of Judah, they shall be rebuilt, and of the ruins I will restore them, who says to the watery deep, be dry, and I will dry up the streams, who says of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and will accomplish all that I please. He will say of Jerusalem, let it be rebuilt, and of the temple, let its foundations be laid. And actually, the division between chapter 44 and 45 is actually an artificial one. There's no reason for them to be separated. So I'll just read the first few lines of 45 as well. This is what the Lord says to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I take hold of, to subdue nations before him and to strip kings of their armor, to open doors before him so that gates will not be shut. I will go before you and will level the mountains. I will break down gates of bronze and cut through bars of iron. I will give you hidden treasures, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord, the God of Israel, who summons you by name.
Why is he saying he's the God of Israel rather than Ahura Mazda?
Are you saying that in response to me saying that
No,
Persians
just
are
like this.
reforming the religion?
So no, because what I'm saying is, why is it that if Ahura Mazda is the deity that you want to follow because he's the created deity, right?
Me or the Persians of that time?
No, what is your view of Ahura Mazda?
My view is, if we take Ahura Mazda to be the ultimate consciousness, the titanic intellect,
Okay.
then
Are we going to shy away from the word God?
No, then yeah, but what does God mean? Just the highest
No,
thing?
he's the creative being. So he
Okay, so if you want to define God as the thing that creates,
created everything. Yeah.
then if we can attribute our universe
Yeah.
to the work of some
architect,
supreme intellect,
Yeah.
then I would say that then that makes sense. Then Ahura Mazda literally means Lord Wisdom,
Lord Wisdom,
as in the overarching intellect.
Right, of course. So now you've explained the Ahura Mazda name. So what my question would be that if Ahura Mazda is the real entity, right, rather than Yahweh, I'm going to make a distinction because I don't believe there is a Ahura Mazda who is, the creator being or the
I think Yahweh is clearly not Ahura Mazda. Yeah.
right. So then why is it that Ahura Mazda has not prevailed, is what I'm trying to say, in the history of humanity or in that region either? That's my
Who says he
question.
hasn't?
So now, give me why you think that he hasn't.
Well, what would be an indicator that he had?
I'm just saying because, look, if by prevailing it would mean that, everybody, or there is like a sense of like, there's nobody besides a very few people who are following Zoroastrianism are aware of even.
Yeah, but you're talking.
Somebody called Ahura Mazda.
Yeah, but we talked about this earlier. You're talking about people who follow orthodox institutional Zoroastrianism. For me, the teachings of Zarathustra are nothing to do with institutional religion. He's saying don't do institutional religion. I say the people who follow orthodox, ritualized Zoroastrian religion are. This might offend them. They are doing something which is contradictory to Zarathustra's teachings. Because he said clearly not to ritualize your religion. But by religion, what he means is the structure of your life, like what you do, what it is that you value most, what it is you put at the pinnacle of your value system. Now, when you say, why hasn't Ahura Mazda succeeded? How do you classify success in that respect?
I mean, prevailed is what I said.
Prevailed. How do you
prevailed is
qualify
like,
that?
if he's the truth, then the truth should be very evident. And that everybody okay. So one thing that I like about your thing is, do you consider yourself Persian, like Parsi? Parsi is Persian, right?
I am Persian, yeah.
You're Parsi.
Ethnically and culturally.
Do you call yourself a Parsi? No, there's a word Parsi that refers to Zoroastrians also in our culture. When we say Parsi, somebody is a Parsi, that means that he's a Zoroastrian.
But that's a word you came up with. That's a use of the word you came up with.
You are using the same word. You're using the word Parsi.
Yeah, but Persians are an ethnic group.
Okay, fine, but they are known as Parsis
because you believe that their religion is the Persian religion.
Of Persians in Iran that are called Parsis. Are you aware of that?
I'm saying I don't see them as Persian because they're Zoroastrian. I see them as Persian because their ancestry is Persian.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Okay, gotcha.
You call them Parsi because they're Zoroastrian.
No, that's one of the
because
main
you're turning it
about them. Is
no, because you're making it an ethno-religion.
Okay, yeah.
But it isn't.
It isn't.
It is absolutely
However,
not.
all those people like Tata in India, right? The Tata Motors, right? So that person, is he a Zoroastrian?
Well, what does he say?
I believe he is, yeah.
So so I want to explain what I mean by, when I say I'm a Zoroastrian, what I mean. I venerate as the most important principle in my life, my guiding light in my life, as being wisdom. Mazda. Okay? And I'm in pursuit of establishing a cosmic truth. I want things to be the way they should be. I'm in pursuit of what we call Asha. Yeah, I'm in pursuit of that. My preoccupation is to establish a cosmic truth, how things should be.
Give me that, what that would look like. Can you tell me what that cosmic truth would be?
How I divine what that is through, it's kind of a internal.
Let's say
thing.
you were preaching to somebody,
Yeah.
and they were listening.
Yeah.
They were interested. What would you be preaching them about this subject?